It's a story about Tim Conigrave and his life growing up in Australia, in Melbourne, and his love for a boy he meets at school, John Caleo. Yeah, it's about them growing up together as a couple and the difficulties they go through because of the era they found themselves in with HIV and AIDS.
The challenge was very real, having respect for the story, the author, and the fact that like members of the family, like they're still living, like a lot of these people are still alive, and yeah, just sort of paying respect to the family and the story. Having the book as like a secondary piece to like refer to was incredibly helpful. Seeing the way that Tommy actually adapted the book, which is it's not a short book, but to put it into like a 2.5 hour play that, you know, goes from this Tim from when he's like 8 years old to, you know, when he eventually passes. But yeah, it's an amazing feat to adapt such a massive story into such a concise play. And
yeah, it also, I think the fact that it is a true story gave us a sense of duty to give that story as truthfully as possible. What this couple had to go through when it comes to write, it's not mentioned in the play, it is mentioned in the novel how John got punched in the face.
There was like physical violence and stuff against them, which was quite typical in Australia at the time.
Yeah, although we don't represent that in the play and it's not discussed so much, you do carry it on with you.
And there is that sort of that level of fear. Being homosexual at that time was very, it just wasn't done, that wasn't how it's done, and like you're wrong basically. And that was something that was really hard to come to terms with.
And I really believe that the reason why that story is so popular and so beautiful, it's because it's said in such an honest way. Tim isn't ashamed of his actions.
And he's not perfect, he's an incredibly flawed person.
It's very human, and that's why I think it connects with so many people.
I love my actors. They are very prepared, very committed, very with the project, and they're doing a fantastic job. I started working with Paul-Emile and Christopher at the beginning of November. So we actually spent 2.5 months developing the characters and everything. And that is unique for Fringe, because usually you've got 4 to 6 weeks of rehearsals. The 4 additional ensemble came later. But my emphasis is on getting like the characters' core, I call it. It's something about where the person is coming from and what they're doing, and push for emotions and relationships.
For me, I work very visually, so having pictures of Tim and John really helped me. They're my phone background, they're all over my wall.
And so I finished my acting degree in Poland in 2002, and then I went to Australia where I also studied acting. And then someone handed in Holding the Man, the novel, and I started reading that. That was one of the first books in English I read that I could read properly, because, you know, learning English. And I only got to the parts where John becomes HIV positive, and then it became very, very sad. I couldn't read any further.
There's been a massive focus on the relationship between John and Tim, which is incredibly important. It's kind of like the center point of the whole book. The book is actually dedicated to John.
This project is so emotional. We all cried. We have guests that there was a guest coming telling us about his experience of losing a partner due to, you know, HIV and AIDS, and the resemblance with Tim and John's story was amazing, and everyone was just like, shh, but just unbelievable experience. So in a place that is run like this, it's just great to work.
Personally, for me, like, my biggest issue was not going all doom and gloom, because Tim is someone who is, I think he was like this eternal optimist, and like everything was fine, like we're going to be fine. And just like taking a moment that would be like very dark and very upsetting for anyone who read that on the page, but putting a joke in there and like actually having a lot, like lightening the situation, was something I really struggled with for a lot of the process. But then once it clicked, it was like, right, that's who Tim is. I gotcha.
And even in these dark bits, I think what makes it so sad is how sometimes we play the opposite of that.
Yeah, like we play sad scenes for the humour, and we search for those things.
when we were exploring the characters, they kiss, they have sex, they argue, they fight, they break up, they go away and have sex with other people, they come back. There's lots of everything that happens in a relationship. But there was one point we had a little argument about they never angry at each other, they angry at the external things, and that makes this relationship so beautiful and so unique. Because lots of us just argue because we just don't like each other. They loved each other so truly. So I think I want people to be jealous and want that love in their life.
I think it's a true story that has resonated with so many people, and you can see why.
Maybe some of the audience have that experience, but if they not, I just want them to be jealous. Jealous in a way like, oh, I want that. I want this kind of quality of the relationship, and that would be the best present from the audience if I hear that.
It's a very universal story.
Yeah,
it's a very personal story that's very universal at the same time.
It's very human in the sense that there are flaws, there are leaks, and you can see that, and it's not apologizing for that whatsoever. It is just facts of how it happened.
And it just is, and I think
that's what makes it beautiful.
It's so raw, and it is beautiful.